in business, writers are not the stars. All you have to do is look at the covers of the business magazines out there, and you realize that design is celebrated much more than writing. You've never seen a creative writer for Apple on the cover of the Wall Street Journal magazine, and you never will. Writers simply are not celebrated, and that's okay. That's okay, because writers know deep down why we write. We write because it helps us to think. We write because it helps us to feel. We write to really explore the content and the knowledge and the passion and get into the research. All of these things are reasons why we write. But most importantly, we write to tell stories. And in my business, the experience business, we write to tell stories all over the world, whether it's the American Airlines Museum in Dallas, Texas, or whether it's the Warner Brothers World grand opening in Abu Dhabi. We write to tell these stories. And we love writing to tell stories, but it's really hard to try to explain what a story is sometimes. And so when it comes to a story, we really have to first agree on what we're talking about. And the best example of this is to look at a theme park. And this is Pandora at Animal Kingdom. And I went here with my oldest daughter last year, and we had a great time. And you would think that this Pandora land at this theme park is all about the movie, but it's not about the movie. In fact, the creator of this land, Joe Rohde from Walt Disney Imagineering, described it as this: it's not the movie Avatar that we are portraying. The intrinsic value of nature is the theme. The story is really about the balance of nature and humanity. It's a very simple idea. And in an experience, the story is the core idea or the overriding theme that informs everything. You have to get it very simple. What is it that we're trying to communicate? And you really can't find that story without looking at the brand. That's the first place that we begin when we start to try to understand what the story for an experience is. And there is a brand, and there is a story, but they are two separate things. Take American Airlines Museum, for example, in Dallas that I referenced earlier. Well, American Airlines has a lot of branding documents, and this was one of the things that they shared with us to build American Airlines to thrive forever and make culture a competitive advantage and create a world-class customer experience. All of these things are important, and all of these things informed our work. But no, the story of the American Airlines Museum was about the stories of their employees. It was about our stories. And if we go back to Warner Brothers World Abu Dhabi, there's a lot of really interesting brand information that I can't share with you. But it's a lot of really interesting brand information and guidelines and pillars and reasons to believe and mission and vision. But all of those things aren't the story. Breaking it down at Warner Brothers World, Abu Dhabi, it comes down to connecting with heroes. Heroes like Superman, heroes like Aquaman and Batman, and heroes like Wonder Woman. I mean, look at this picture right here. Wonder Woman hugging a young Emirati girl. Or, of course, there are a few people here in the audience who might rather connect with villains. And in Warner Brothers World, and here in Gotham at Warner Brothers World, of course, you can connect with Joker and the other villains. So that is the story. It's about connecting with heroes and villains. So in an experience, it's about writing to refine the brand down to the core idea that is your story. So part of that also involves looking at the brand personality, because every story has an attitude. Every story has a personality and has a tone, and you want to bring that to life and experience. In fact, all great brands have a personality. Here's one: optimistic, intuitive, deliberate, authentic, and understatedly cool. There's a few in the audience here who I think match several of these attributes and several of these personalities. But when it comes to an experience, we must pick a dominant personality to bring to life in that experience. So for example, at the FM Global Center in Singapore, this is an insurance company, a property insurance company, and an amazing company that does tremendous things around the world. And their personality and voice is innovative, client-focused, responsible. They're an industry leader, stable and secure, and knowledge-based. But when it came to picking a dominant personality, it was all about knowledge. For example, here in a 2-story LED tower, it was about sharing knowledge of real seismic data from around the world, and knowledge of real fire data from all around the world, and knowledge of real wind and rain and other data from all around the world. After personality, then, it's about takeaway, or what you want someone to say as they walk out the door. If you tell your story right, it naturally leads to that emotional takeaway that someone then literally turns to someone and says, oh, wow, that was interesting. Or they might say, you know what, we need to come back. Or they might say, I'm never going to do that again. But you have to have an emotional takeaway. So for example, at the FM Global Center in Singapore, it was, oh crap, we better talk more about how to protect our property. Or at Warner Brothers World Abu Dhabi, it was about, who is your favorite? Was it Bugs Bunny? Was it Tweety Bird? Who was your favorite? So how do we simplify brand a story? Because that's really what it's about. Is there any tools that we can use to really simplify that brand into a story? So allow me to share with you my favorite brand book of all time, and I've seen a lot of them. This was from IBM, and I've done a little bit of research on this, and the best I can understand, it was written by Chris Wall, the late Chris Wall, vice chair at Ogilvy. And in this brand book, he breaks the IBM brand down by asking 4 questions. You can see some of those questions asked here. What's your enduring idea? For Disney, it's innocence. How are you differentiated? For BMW, it's German engineering. How is your brand experienced? For Apple, it's the design of its products. And finally, who do you serve? At Nike, it's the athlete in all of us. So if you can ask these 4 questions about yourself, you can understand your brand, and more importantly, you can begin to understand that story. What is the enduring idea that your brand is based upon? Next, what differentiates you from the competition? What makes you different? Third, how is your brand experienced? And fourth, who do you serve? That 4th question is very important because the answer might surprise you. If you can answer those questions in writing, and it is important to write them because that writing is that thought process that allows you to really explore it. If you can answer those questions in writing, you can find your story. And then, of course, it's about translating that story into a physical space if you're talking about an experience. And that's the business that I'm in, and I've been in this business since I was 14 years old. And when I was a teenager at Lagoon Amusement Park in Farmington, Utah, we had a formula that always worked. I was a stage manager for Music USA. It was a great, fantastic show, a musical review. And at the end of the show, we always dropped the flag. And that guaranteed a standing ovation. Everybody would stand up. The performers would come out and sing a song like Lee Greenwood's I'm Proud to Be an American. Everybody would stand up and applaud. It would guarantee a standing ovation after every show. So this is a quick formula I want to share with you. It's called the experience model. A short video produced by the team here at River Imaging Collective shows that we have a canyon or we have a divide. And we need to get people across this divide, whether that's communicating a message in a brand experience center or helping them to have fun at a theme park or sharing an important message in a museum. The visitors show up, and the first thing we need to do is we need to attract their attention. We need to get them to the edge of that cliff. So we create an icon or some other experience that draws them to the experience. Then we have to build some trust. We have to somehow connect with them on an emotional level that builds that trust. After we've done that, we give them the information to move forward in their journey. Then we help them to internalize that story in a more emotional way. And if we've done these things, if we've built the trust, if we've given the information and helped them internalize the story, then we can build that bridge and get them to actually do something. We can get them to act. This is the experience model. And if we can do this, whether it's a theme park attraction, a museum, or a brand experience center, we can create an experience that will move people. So quickly, let's show how this plays out in a theme park. Everybody's been, well, not everybody, but most everybody's been to Universal Studios. The castle here, Hogwarts, is the attract. It's the icon. Then next, you would come into the queue. And my daughter, who's now 23, when she was 14, she said to me, "Dad, this is legit." Trust was immediately built. Then you get the information you need in the pre-show, you internalize the message on the ride, and then finally, it's not exiting through retail, it's about becoming part of that story, where you argue about, well, are you Slytherin? Are you Hufflepuff? Are you Ravenclaw? Who are you? And then everybody always says, that's a theme park, of course the experiential model works there. What about in a serious museum? Well, there's no more serious museum in the world than the Holocaust Memorial in Washington, D.C. The architecture, this industrial aesthetic, draws you in and pulls you into the story. Next, trust is built as you get the backstory of the Holocaust through walk-through exhibits. Several videos and small theaters really help to give you the information you need to move forward in the journey. But it isn't until you're immersed in the grand scale and the tragic scale of the Holocaust that you really begin to understand and internalize the story. And then finally, there is no exit through retail here. You simply sit in a shrine and resolve never to let this happen again. And how about for a corporate brand experience center? Well, here at FM Global Innovation Studio, Attract is something very simple, an animation on a wall that lets you know that this is the place for innovation, so come on in. Then you get artifacts from companies that represent a very simple idea. As great companies continue to innovate, their risks change. So you see there's ketchup bottles because packaging influenced risk. There's tires, there's helmets, there's a number of products that represent this. From here you go to an interactive that gives you information about the fire tests that happen in the largest fire test facility in the world. Next, into a design think space where you can whiteboard and talk and discuss innovation. And the act here is really about sitting across from each other and having a cup of coffee and talking about what to do next. This is the experience model. Before I say thank you, I want to remind you again about that formula we talked about, that formula that we used at Lagoon Amusement Park when I was a teenager. And so now, as I say thank you, we drop the flag. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Formulas work. The experience model works. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. All right, thank you.